Hello, today on Some Idiot on the Internet Who Sits Between Two Doors. I'm just gonna make this video really quickly, and I'm trying to get it out as quickly as possible. It should be uploading on Sunday. Again, I'm now on Sunday upload schedules, so you don't need to be worried about being flooded with updates on older videos that you probably don't care about. All of that stuff is done. We're just now going to be doing Sunday videos on much more current gaming news and general current fan stuff and geek stuff. And eventually my project, my secret project will go. So I debated what I was going to do for this video since I don't really have a lot of time for it. But I still wanted to make sure I got a Sunday video up. And I kind of wanted to do it about Fallout 76, but I don't think it's fair for me to do that because I personally have not experienced Fallout 76. I have friends who have played it and I've talked to them, I've watched streams of it, but I don't think it's fair to try to judge a game based on not actually playing the game. Just secondhand knowledge of it just doesn't work as far as I'm concerned. So in the end, it kind of left me with this realization though that all of it, like so much of what's going on in gaming right now, all comes back to this same controversy, this same feeling that I think a lot of people who consider themselves gamers and stay current on the latest gaming news and information have begun to feel when it comes to the video game industry, in particular the AAA industry. Is the industry doomed the way I think a lot of people say it is? No. But it's definitely becoming a space where I think a lot of us are becoming less and less enthusiastic about it. And I think a lot of the controversy we're seeing lately is just more and more of an extension of that. You know, as we approach the holidays, as we get closer to Christmas time here in the States, which is a huge, big marketing and business push. I mean, literally, this week is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, if you celebrate it. And after Thanksgiving is an informal holiday that has the moniker Black Friday. This, horrible day of consumer excess that so many people rile against, and yet at the same time the vast majority of the American marketplace participates in it. And I am once again finding myself, I'm going to be on the business end of Black Friday, and hopefully a little bit more successfully Small Business Saturday, because I will be trying to help my parents out this weekend as they try to do their business thing. And with the push from the AAA industry that comes as the holiday approaches, I think it's just stirring up all of the controversy, because more and more these desperate practices to bring in as much cash as possible this time of year is becoming more and more self-evident. And I mean, look at where a lot of this controversy started for most people. I mean, obviously if you're an informed gamer, you've probably been aware of a lot of what's going on for much longer. But for the vast majority of people, the controversy really didn't exist for them until Star Wars Battlefront 2. And when did Star Wars Battlefront 2 drop? Holiday season of last year. And so this push has just brought to the forefront a set of just interesting pieces of information that is painting a picture of the video game industry that I think more and more gamers are becoming dissatisfied with. So, just to kind of go over what I think the major points that have been going on with this controversy. So, over the course of the year, on and off, since the release of Star Wars Battlefront 2, EA, to be specific, because the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 was fantastic. Loot boxes and predatory monetization practices are coming up in the news more and more often. And it's just been something where it seems like just as it starts to quiet down, the news cycle picks it up again. And so everyone's very keenly aware of what they're doing. And for a lot of it, and I mentioned this somewhat in my last video, you've got these pro-industry pundits and of course the representatives, the PR people, and in many cases even the CEOs themselves coming to the public and saying, look, you may not like these monetization practices, but we're a business. We've still got to take care of our investors and our stockholders. We've still got to pay our employees. And making video games is expensive, and it's just becoming more and more expensive. And so, if we don't do these practices, then the industry could collapse. Like, sometimes it feels like it's that dire. You know, Jim Sterling calls it, you know, they're crying poverty to us. And then, of course, as we get towards the end of the year, these businesses have had to talk to their investors. They've had to do their investor conference calls and their investor meetings. And the news coming from Wall Street is a lot different than the news that we're hearing. So, one thing to keep in mind here, there's no actual law, with the exception of certain aspects of fraud law, that says that they can't lie to us. When their PR people come out, and when their CEOs come out, and they try to make it look like the current monetization practices are absolutely necessary to the health of the industry, as long as they're not directly saying factually dishonest things, in other words, they are stating things as complete and total objective facts that are false, no one can really do anything about it. But when they go to Wall Street, the law has very strict requirements on the information that they submit and how accurate that information has to be. So when they come to us and they cry poverty and then go to Wall Street and brag about their profits, that bragging, that's what you should be paying attention to. And what did we learn as these investor conference calls took place as this year has drawn to an end? The video game industry, the three major AAA publishers, Electronic Arts, Blizzard Entertainment, and Take-Two Interactive, are doing just fine. Not only are they doing fine? They're doing far above what was projected or expected. They are all bragging about setting records. And in particular, Take-Two, and this is something I need to talk about, a quick correction. In my first BlizzCon reaction, I implied that Blizzard Entertainment is currently holder of the most valuable media property, or to be more specific, Activision. And that was because I thought that Rockstar was a subsidiary of Activision. They're not. They're a subsidiary of Take-Two Interactive. And Grand Theft Auto is the most successful media property of all time. So Take-Two Interactive, it now holds a more valuable media property than Star Wars, than Marvel, than any other property that you can think of. And the amount of money they're bringing in from microtransactions for Grand Theft Auto Online is insane. But here's the real rub. They've tried to make it sound like these predatory practices are necessary. But here's the thing. In these calls and these conferences with their investors, they have to break down their revenue stream. And the revenue stream is calling them all liars, liars, pants on fire. Like, all of this loot box revenue, all of the money they're bringing in from that, it's all gravy. They're doing fine. They're making plenty of money off of sales. They don't need to do these microtransactions the way they're doing them. They want to. And again, they're allowed to try to be successful. I don't have a problem with them trying to be successful. I think where most of us have our problem is the dishonesty. It's the lies. It's this notion of, well, if you gamers keep hating on loot boxes, it's going to bankrupt the industry. No, the industry will be fine. This notion that, oh, there's nothing wrong with loot boxes. No. Study after study has shown that there are connections to loot boxes and gambling mechanics. And in fact, we just got another study that just came out that seems to show a connection between rising numbers of young people gambling and loot boxes and the popularity of loot box mechanics. It really is. It's very simple brain chemistry, and it doesn't work on everyone. I don't buy loot boxes. I've gotten a few of the boxes that Grinding Gear Games releases, which are, you want to see loot boxes done right, Grinding Gear Games does their loot boxes right. That you know all their odds, you know exactly what your chances are of getting the items you want, and the loot boxes are temporary, and those items go up on the storefront when the loot boxes are gone. So if you just want to be patient and wait, you can be patient and wait, and then buy the exact specific items you want. But I get those loot boxes as part of like some of the special rewards and deals that they get, and I open them. And it's cool when I get something cool out of them, and I've gotten cool items out of them. And I don't feel the need to go jump over and spend a ton of money to get more. But some people it does affect. And some people are spending more money than they should. I mean, the story, the idea behind it that the industry wants to push is that these individuals who have more expendable income are subsidizing the expenses of the games manufacturing for the rest of us. But it's a lie. Wealth has nothing to do with whether or not you spend a lot of money on loot boxes. It's about whether or not you're susceptible to those mechanics. So, yeah, some people can take it and they can spend all that money. Other people can't. And of course, while they're bringing in all this money and talking about this idea that these predatory microtransactions are going to make gaming cheaper for the rest of us, and then you look at the costs of all of the special editions for Black Ops 4 and what the cost of the season pass for Black Ops 4 is, and the fact that the content you get in the basic package is far less than any previous Call of Duty. So, despite the fact they're making all this money and posting these records profits, game costs are going up. We're getting less value for our dollar. And then you go from that controversy, these record profits, in a year when everyone in the game industry is talking about what needs to be done, and the nature of these DLC practices. And one of the things that you'll hear some people try to say is you got to think about the developers. You've got to think about the developers. These developers can't get their funding if the publishers don't have the money. Well, the publishers have the money, and the developers aren't doing any better. Electronic Arts has the money. They have it. It's there. They're not putting it in their development houses. They had the money. And Visceral Games still got shut down. They had the money. And Mass Effect Andromeda still got pushed out as a buggy mess. Activision Blizzard has the money. And yet Black Ops 4 can't have single player and has to have all of these different things. They have the money. And yet Bungie is working in a state of perpetual crunch to release Destiny content. Take-Two Interactive has the money. And yet, their studio, Rockstar, and all of their employees were forced to crunch at 100-hour work weeks on threat of termination to get Red Dead Redemption 2 out. It's not about the money. And so now we have this new controversy on the heels of Blizzard Entertainment announcing a mobile game to the wrong audience. Again, it would have been fine if they just announced it, at like Kesva or something like that. But they just announced it to the wrong audience. That is going to almost certainly prey upon the tendency of the Asian marketplace to spend a lot of money on these pay-to-win games. And they're going to be bringing in all this money. And now Bethesda has pushed out Fallout 76. And report after report after report, reviewer after reviewer, critic after critic, are saying that this is essentially a beta that people are paying to play. And in many ways, it's a game that never should have existed. I mean, there were a lot of people who didn't want Fallout 76 when it got announced to begin with, but now that we actually know more about how it was developed, the fact that Bethesda just took the same engine that they keep tweaking and repurposing for all those games, with all of its bugs that just keep getting worse and worse as they keep trying to force the engine to do things it was never intended to do. And then they took that engine and they tried to force it to make an online game, and it's not working. And you might say, well, it's fine for me. And in fact, I have friends who they're playing Fallout 76 and they have fun. But there's a lot of people who it's not working. They don't get to play the same game you're getting to play. And why did that happen? Why was this game released this way? Greed. Money. That's why. This game should have been rebuilt from the ground up. Maybe keep the assets so that you still have the exact same Fallout look and feel. But the engine, it should have been on a new engine specifically designed for online play. And they just repurposed an old one. Why? Because it's cheaper. And now you have people who spent money on the game. Bethesda fans like you, like me, who spent money on this game, and they can't play it. And will it be fixed eventually? This time? Kind of depends. Because how long has Skyrim been out? And just this year, Bethesda released Skyrim for the Switch, and it had all the same bugs that it's had since the last content patch that or the last fix packs that Bethesda made 7 years ago. So Bethesda will fix it to a point, and normally this is when the modding community would step in. But although we're being told, of course, they keep telling us we're going to have access to modding tools and there will be a modding community. Right now there isn't. And we can't guarantee what kind of capabilities and limitations these tools are going to have when it comes to the final product, because of the fact that it's an online game. We don't know what Bethesda's going to have to cut out to keep the game from being something that people can take advantage of and potentially do horrible things to their servers, or, worse, horrible things to the people they trick into connecting to their servers. So even if mods come out, we don't know that the modding community is going to be able to fix it this time. And we don't know if the modding community is going to want to fix it. Because that's a community driven entirely by passion for these games. If they don't feel passionate about Fallout 76, they're not going to fix it. They're not going to put that time and effort for it. So the simple fact of the matter is that the AAA industry is just being greedy. And a certain amount of greed is fine, but we are supposed to be the check on that. Between the journalism, which, oh boy, there's a whole nother ball of wax to get into, and the consumers and the pundits, we're supposed to be their check. We're supposed to be voting with our dollar. And people keep saying, it's practically a commandment in the gaming community now. Thou shalt not pre-order. Stop buying these games. Stop being the fanboy and spending money on the games before you know what you're going to get. And it's hard. I mean, I pre-ordered and bought and got the season pass for Fallout 4, I don't know that I've seen any of my money back as far as the amount of time and enjoyment I've gotten from that. But I was a fanboy, and I did it. I'm just as guilty as the people who did Fallout 76 for the fact that Fallout 4 was an inferior product compared to other Fallout games. And at the end of the day, only we can stop doing that. We're the only ones that can put our foot down and say, you know what? I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to buy into your hype. I'm not going to pre-order your game. I'm not going to pre-order your season pass. If you release DLC and it's not a good enough value to make up for the lost savings that I made, I'm going to wait for a sale. You know, that's what we have to start doing. All of us. And it sucked. There's been so many games that I've wanted to jump on and grab, you know, right off the bat. And there have been so many games that I'm sorry that I missed out on, but you know what? There have been more games. I'm glad I didn't waste my money this year. So, that's where we gotta go. And that's the only way that we're going to get this industry actually making good games for us again. And actually treating their developers the way that they deserve to be treated. Is if we vote with our dollars and we demand it of them using our money. Because we have the power to take those profits away. We just have to have the will.